Kemi Badenock, in the 11 months since you've become party leader, the Conservatives have dropped in the polls from 26% to 17%. You've lost 700 council seats, 16 councils, 18 senior Tories have defected. Your personal poll ratings are at -47. It's worse than Ian Duncan-Smith at his lowest ebb. It's worse than when Boris Johnson resigned. And in a poll this week, for us, Tory members say Jenrick should lead the party over you. How does that make you feel?
Well, I remember during the leadership contest, there was another poll that said Rob was going to win and I won. So I don't let these things distract me. The fact of the matter is that last year, we lost in a historic defeat. We've never had so few MPs, and it's going to take time to come back from that.
Does it make you feel worried? Does it make you feel more determined?
It is. I am absolutely determined to get our party out of this. But I always said that things would get worse before they got better.
The Conservative Party conference in Manchester has laid bare one of the most pressing questions facing British politics today. Can the Conservatives survive as an independent force, or must they eventually reconcile with Nigel Farage's Reform UK? At the heart of this existential debate stands Kemi Badenock, the Conservative leader who has made her position abundantly clear. She will not entertain talk of pacts, mergers, or even basic admiration for the man who many believe holds the key to the right's electoral prospects. Her message to those clamoring for unity with reform is blunt and uncompromising. She was not elected to forge alliances with Nigel Farage. She was elected to rebuild the Conservative Party on her own terms. Welcome to UK Decoded. Please subscribe to the channel for daily updates on hot topics concerning UK politics and royal family with detailed breakdown.
I am absolutely determined to get our party out of this. But I always said that things would get worse before they got better because we'd be out of government. We're now in an era of multi-party politics, lots of people taking attention. But this conference is showing stronger borders, stronger economy. This is the direction of travel.
Before it gets better, how long have you given yourself to turn this around?
So I was elected to change the party. That is what I'm doing. And I told people we weren't going to rush out with announcements.
When's it going to get better?
We would make sure that we had things that people could see very clearly were Conservative.
When's it going to get better?
That's what the stronger borders, stronger economy is about. What I want people to know is that these things take time. The last oppositions...
How long time are you giving yourself?
The last oppositions were 14 years, 13 years, 18 years.
So you're giving yourself 14 years?
I've been in the job 11 months. We're going to do something that has not been done before, come back to office in 4 years' time. What I need to focus on is getting that
4 years'
right,
time back to
not
office.
setting timetables.
You were asked if you'd resign if the party goes backwards in next year's elections. You said, when you were asked that, you said, ask me that after the elections. Why did you say that?
Because let's see what the election result is about. We're spending a lot of...
Speaking to Sky News political editor Beth Rigby against the backdrop of the Manchester conference, Badenoch was asked a seemingly straightforward question. Does she admire Nigel Farage? Her response was telling in its evasiveness. I do not understand the question, she replied, a remarkable statement from a political leader known for her directness. When pressed further about what she thought of Farage, whose Reform UK currently leads in the opinion polls, Badenoch deflected with visible irritation. I think it is very interesting that a lot of the media in Westminster is very interested about asking about Nigel Farage. I'm not interested in Nigel Farage. I'm interested in the Conservative Party. This refusal to engage with the Farage question is more than mere political posturing. It represents a fundamental choice about the future direction of British conservatism. On one side stands the traditional Conservative Party, battered and bruised from last year's historic electoral defeat, now languishing at 17% in the polls. On the other stands Reform UK, riding high with Farage at the helm, hoovering up disaffected Conservative voters and setting the agenda on immigration and national sovereignty. The question haunting every Conservative activist and Member of Parliament is whether these two forces can coexist or whether one must eventually subsume the other. The Manchester conference has seen the Conservatives announce a string of eye-catching policies clearly designed to compete with reform on their own turf. The party has promised to leave the European Convention on Human Rights if Badenoch wins the next election, a move that directly mirrors Reform's existing policy position. They have also committed to what they describe as ICE-style deportations, invoking the controversial American Immigration Enforcement Agency to signal toughness on illegal immigration. These announcements have been widely interpreted as an attempt to neutralize the threat posed by reform by adopting similar positions on the issues that matter most to the right-leaning electorate. Yet the Conservatives have also sought to differentiate themselves from reform in crucial ways. Party strategists have branded reform spending plans as socialist, an extraordinary claim to make about a party typically characterized as right-wing populist. This attempt to outflank reform from the fiscally conservative position represents a gamble. It assumes that there remains a substantial constituency within the British electorate that cares more about balanced budgets and traditional conservative economics than about the cultural and immigration issues that animate reform supporters. The pressure on Badenoch to consider some form of arrangement with reform is not merely coming from media speculation. The numbers tell a stark story. A recent YouGov poll of Conservative Party members revealed that 64% support an electoral pact with reform. Even more dramatically, 4 to 6% of Tory members would support a full merger between the two parties. These are not fringe voices. These are the grassroots activists who knock on doors, deliver leaflets, and keep the Conservative Party functioning as a political organization. When nearly half of your membership supports merging with what is ostensibly a rival party, you face a crisis of purpose and identity. Conservative MP Andrew Rosindell has become one of the most vocal advocates for cooperation with reform. Speaking to GB News on Monday, he laid out the case with characteristic bluntness. "I have made it clear all the way through, and nothing has changed, that I am for the Conservatives and reform working together. We need right-of-centre unity to defeat the left. If that means the Conservatives and reform working together, we should do it. I do not see reform as our enemies. It is a split on the right, and we need to come together." Rosindell's logic is compelling in its simplicity. The left currently dominates British politics not because Labour has become overwhelmingly popular, but because the right is divided. The combined vote share of the Conservatives and reform in most constituencies would easily surpass Labour's totals. From this perspective, the refusal to work together appears almost suicidal, a triumph of tribal loyalty over electoral mathematics. Why condemn yourself to opposition when cooperation could deliver power? Yet Badenoch's response to such arguments reveals a different calculus entirely. When Beth Rigby put it to her that the Tories might need to work with reform, the Conservative leader's answer was emphatic and laced with barely concealed frustration. "I am not interested in doing pacts. I was not elected to have a pact with reform. I was elected to change the Conservative Party, make it clear what we stand for, and that is what I have done at this conference." Robert Jenrick is not the leader of the Conservative Party, neither is Andrew Rosindell. I am. This last point is particularly significant. Badenoch was reminding her critics that she, not Jenrick or Rosindell or any of the other voices within the Conservative Party calling for accommodation with reform, holds the authority to determine party strategy. It was also a pointed reference to the leadership contest that brought her to power, during which questions of how to respond to the reform challenge featured prominently. Badenoch won that contest by promising to rebuild Conservative identity rather than dilute it through alliances. The Conservative leader has acknowledged the dire position her party finds itself in. Speaking candidly to Sky News, she admitted there was a lot we could do better given that Conservative support has collapsed from 26% to 17% in recent months, while her personal poll ratings stand at a troubling -4 to 7. These are numbers that would induce panic in most political leaders. Yet Badenoch projected an almost philosophical calm about the situation, framing it as an inevitable consequence of the party's historic defeat. "I do not let these things distract me," she told Rigby. "The fact of the matter is that last year we lost in a historic defeat. We never had so few MPs, and it is going to take time to come back from that. I'm absolutely determined to get our party out of this. But I always said that things would get worse before they got better because we would be out of government." This worse before better framing represents a deliberate attempt to manage expectations and buy herself time. Badenoch is essentially asking Conservative members and voters to trust that her strategy of maintaining party independence while adopting tougher positions on immigration and European institutions will eventually pay dividends. She is betting that there remains a market for a distinctly conservative vision that is neither Labour's statism nor reform's populism. But is this bet likely to succeed? The evidence is mixed at best. On one hand, the Conservative Party retains advantages that Reform cannot easily replicate. It has an established ground operation in constituencies across the country, experienced parliamentarians who understand how to operate in government, and institutional credibility built over centuries. The party also has time. The next general election may be years away, and political landscapes can shift dramatically over such timescales. On the other hand, Reform under Farage has demonstrated a remarkable ability to set the political agenda and capture public imagination, particularly on immigration and national identity. Farage himself remains a formidable political communicator with a personal following that dwarfs anything Badenoch can currently claim. His party's lead in the polls suggests that a substantial portion of the British electorate has concluded that the Conservatives had their chance and blew it, and that something fundamentally different is required. The parallel with historical precedents is instructive but not entirely encouraging for Badenoch. Political parties that suffer catastrophic defeats do sometimes rebuild and return to power. Labour managed it after 1997, though it took 13 years and a fundamental ideological shift under Tony Blair. The Conservatives themselves recovered from their 1997 defeat, though it took them 13 years as well and required significant modernisation under David Cameron. However, both of those recoveries occurred in an era before a credible rival party had emerged to permanently split their natural vote. What makes the current situation particularly challenging for the Conservatives is that Reform is not merely a protest vehicle likely to collapse once voters face the reality of a general election. It is increasingly looking like a permanent feature of the British political landscape, with substantial funding, growing organizational capacity, and a leader who has proven his staying power over decades. The question is not whether Reform will disappear, allowing disaffected Conservative voters to return home. The question is whether the Conservatives can offer a sufficiently compelling alternative to peel those voters back. Badenoch's strategy appears to rest on the assumption that she can outcompete Reform by adopting tough positions on the issues that matter to Reform voters while maintaining the Conservative Party's broader appeal and governing credibility. Hence the promises to leave the ECHR and conduct aggressive deportation policies, coupled with attacks on Reform's economic platform as insufficiently conservative. It is a delicate balancing act, one that risks satisfying no one. Too soft, and Reform voters see no reason to return. Too hard, and the Conservatives alienate the moderate voters they need to build a winning coalition. The other challenge Badenoch faces is internal. With nearly half of Conservative members supporting a merger with Reform, she is attempting to lead a party whose grassroots fundamentally disagree with her strategic direction. This is not a sustainable position over the long term. Either Badenoch will need to persuade her members that independence is the correct path, or she will face increasing pressure to reconsider her opposition to cooperation with Farage. For now, Badenoch has drawn a clear line. There will be no pact with Reform, no admiration expressed for Nigel Farage, no accommodation of those within her party who believe unity on the right is essential. She is betting everything on her ability to rebuild Conservative fortunes through clear differentiation and tough policy positions. It is a high-risk strategy, one that will either vindicate her leadership or leave the Conservative Party permanently weakened and divided. As the Manchester Conference concludes and the political circus moves on, one thing is certain. The question of how the Conservatives relate to Reform UK will continue to dominate British politics. Kemi Badenoch has made her position clear, but whether the voters, or indeed her own party members, will accept that position remains very much an open question.